thinking if their recruiter will contact me, it will be some questions from technical. There will be some questions from technical, and
Yeah, usually this is, it's different for every company, but usually during the recruiter portion, it's not technical. It's more of a culture fit type type thing to make sure that you're looking for the same thing. So your first chat with them is usually not technical, but I think it's definitely good to be prepared for the technical stuff, especially if they're full stack roles.
I see. So okay. I'm just nervous because I know my Q&A it's always like crappy, and my coding is okay, but I'm not very familiar with Ruby coding. I'm more familiar with the JavaScript, but my Ruby sometimes I think I understand the concept easily, but yeah, so I sometimes mix up with JavaScript.
Totally. Okay, well, yeah, we've never focused on back-end questions, so we can go ahead and do that then for our time today.
Sure, that's great.
All right. I will be typing and taking notes. Can you tell me what active record is in Rails?
Active records?
Active record, yeah.
Yeah, I know that one. Oh gosh, it doesn't come pop out from my mind. Yes, I did that. Would you mind to give me a little bit of hint?
No worries. Yeah. So Active Record is specifically a library in Rails that is the layer between your Rails application and the database. So it makes it so that you don't have to write SQL. You can use their query methods like where or find or all to get what you need from the database. So you don't have to write like select star from users.
Just use method. Hello? Hi?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just use method.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, yes. Yes. So, okay, go ahead.
Did you hear what I said about Active Record, or did I cut out a little bit?
Oh yes, I think you cut off a little bit, but you're saying I can just use method like find whatever. Doesn't have to go through SQL, but I can use find and whatever and to get all of the data. Do I get it?
Yeah, it's like acts as your translator for SQL to get the data out of the database that you need to your model.
Oh, you just use method and call that method? Like all whatever find.
It gives you all those methods to use, but really it's an object relational mapping. Are you familiar with ORMs?
Okay. Object, yeah, object, whatever mapping you just mentioned.
Yep, I would brush up on that and Active Record and that sort of thing for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so since you're not familiar with that, I won't ask any more questions on it. Can you, in Rails, can you tell me in general how model view controller, that architecture pattern works?
Model view controller is basically synchronized data, synchronized data accessing. Model is the data structure, and the controller handles the business logic, and bring the templates like a view, make the model, and bring the business logic, and bring up the templates from the view to the browser.
Cool. Yeah. So some things were a little off there. So the model is definitely not the database. You still have a separate database. The model interacts with the database, but it's not the database.
It's a structure or no? Model is not a data structure?
No, it is not a data structure. No.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's not a database. And a data structure, I guess, can you tell me, and obviously a database and a data structure aren't the same thing as well. So can you tell me what a data structure is?
Data structure is kind of like either array or string or just object or array of objects, those type of structure, either linear or tree, whatever. That's data structure.
Right. So yeah, so that wouldn't make sense if the model was a data structure, right? And it doesn't make sense that it's the database. So it's that interface between those, right? And your model can have data structures. And then the controller is the go-between passing the information from the model to the browser, right? Or to the view.
Yes. So database.
I would say the business logic lives in the model. And the controller's job is just to pass information. You don't want to put a ton of business logic in the controller.
Oh. So okay, so model has a business logic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. Okay, thank you.
Awesome, cool. All right, let's see another question for you. Can you tell me the difference between each and map?
Each, and they both iterate array. Each, you just go through every single one without changing anything unless you put some functions to change it and push into new array, so it will change it. A mapping is you just directly, it will change, it will come out a new array changed with whatever requirement you put in, it will pop out the new data in the new array. It's changed.
Great answer. Can you tell me what TDD stands for and why you would use it?
TDD is test-driven development. I believe that's called CHA. One of the CHA, it's called CHA testing. That's what I figured. It's basically using TDD is kind of like assertion. Basically, if expected, there are basically two parameters. If one is actual result, the other will be expected, whatever the string. If that first actual result equals exactly whatever the result expected come out, will return true. So test will pass. Otherwise, the second parameter will be returned to say, oh, test failed, we expect this.
Okay, cool. And I guess bigger picture, why write tests before you write the implementation?
Why we need to write a test before?
Yeah. What are some reasons? Like, why do you write a test before you write the code?
We basically want the code break. We try all kinds of result tested, and just want to make it break. If it doesn't, it means it's a solid.
Cool. Yeah, and I would talk a little bit about design. It helps design your code better, and yeah, helps prevent bugs.
Oh, how to prevent the bugs? That will be testing. That will be like put lots of tests and before I write a code.
Yep, to help better design your your program, and then also to help prevent bugs.
How do I do it? Is that what you're saying?
No, so bigger picture with test-driven development is because your answer is right? So because you don't want it to break. So also like other good answers is you don't want bugs or it'll help the design of your program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. It will prevent bugs. Right.
Cool.
Yes.
Awesome. So can you talk to me about migration? So let's see, why do I create a migration in Rails? What's the point of a migration? What does it do?
Migration basically bring the new keys, I believe, new keys into a certain data.
Yeah, so I would say it adds tables and columns into your data.
I see. Tables and columns. Okay.
Yep. All right, awesome. And as far as routing goes in Rails,
Routing?
Routing.
Oh, routing. Yes.
So let's say that I have something that's like, okay, resources posts, only index and show. So if I have index and show routes, what's the HTTP verb that's associated with show and index in Rails?
What exactly you saying here? So
are you familiar with HTTP verbs?
Oh, HTTP, the browser.
Yep. Can you name like 3 HTTP verbs?
3 HTTP verbs.
Verbs. Yep.
Not exactly sure about this question.
Okay, so 3 HTTP verbs would be get, pack, or
okay.
Yep, that's an HTTP verb, right?
Yeah, okay. It's like a get and put, post.
Yep, exactly.
Post. Oh, okay. Just like bring something onto the web browser, onto the HTTP. Oh, okay.
So with show and index and Rails, which HTTP verb is associated with show and index? Is it get? Is it put? Is it post? Is it delete?
It's supposed to be post.
Nope. Get.
It's a get. Show.
Yeah. Show and index, right? So let's say I'm getting users, right? So I'm showing my one user and having the index of all my users. The associated HTTP verb is a get.
Oh, get user. Oh.
But yeah, I would definitely review those like HTTP verbs and what routes are associated with in Rails. If I was doing a create or if I was doing a create in Rails, that's when it's a post.
Oh, yeah. Create is a post. So it's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, totally. I would be familiar with those. And can you tell me if show and index for my posts are RESTful routes?
The routes.
Yep, but are they RESTful? Do you know what RESTful means?
Yeah. I think I heard. I learned about this, but I wasn't really too paid full attention to remember those things.
Okay. Yeah, I would definitely know this. I've had a couple students who've had full stack interviews and they got asked about RESTful routes. So I would definitely review those.
Okay.
And yeah, they both show and index are in fact RESTful routes.
I see. Is this recorded? Is this one recorded?
Yep, it's recording. And then I'm also writing out all the questions that I'm asking you with notes. So I can send you that to your email as well.
I see. So I can click the record. Okay.
Yep, you can. I'll send you a link to the recording too.
Recording.
Does that work?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I couldn't answer these questions.
No, it's okay. I mean, you haven't touched this stuff in a while, right? So I think it's really good that you're going back and being prepared. Because yeah, if you're doing full stack roles, they'll definitely ask you back end questions, obviously. And if you've been focusing on JavaScript, obviously it's really hard, right?
Yeah, I was thinking, oh, maybe I apply for a job. I applied for a bunch of front end. It's not too, there isn't many response. And then I went through, I said, oh, let me apply for full stack.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's great that you're doing that. It opens up more options for you. Just yeah, making sure that you go back and review backend stuff for sure. Okay, another backend question. Do you know the difference between a monolithic and microservice architecture patterns?
You're talking about a dorm, like you're talking about parents like Node.
Not the null object pattern, but like, what's the difference between like an application that's a monolith versus one that's a microservice?
No, I couldn't answer that question.
Okay.
Microservice, like I understand it's model. You ask model or module. Model, right?
No, it's a type of architecture pattern in the back end. And I have had junior developers be asked this just in general. But yeah, so monolithic is you have one big Rails application or one big application, whereas microservice, you have a bunch of little ones that work together.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Not sure. I mean, model obviously is just one object with certain, a function inside.
So it has nothing to do with model. This is not just specific to Rails. This is specific across, all backend languages. And specifically, it's just saying instead of having one big application, it has a bunch of small applications that works together. So monolithic app is one big one. Microservice architecture is a bunch of small ones that work together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would, you don't have to know how to architect that stuff, but being able to talk about it at a high level. So even if I was hiring a junior and they couldn't answer that question, even though I wouldn't care if they had not built a like microservice versus monolith, but they just at least knowing.
Oh.
Cool. So let's say I have a Ruby class and it has a bunch of duplication. What is one of the ways that what is one thing that you would do in order to get rid of that duplication or dry up your code?
Oh, yes. I would just build a helper function first at the top, and then the rest of the functions, I just call that helper function, each one, so I get it dry.
Great answer. Find another question. So getting back a little more into testing, can you tell me about mocking and stubbing in Rails testing and when you would do that? example of when you've mocked or subbed something in the past?
Testing you're talking about?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, exactly. What is that question about?
When is an example of when you've mocked or stubbed something in a test? And what does that syntax look like in RSpec?
A mock?
Yeah, a mock or a stub.
Mock or stub? I do not know.
Okay, that's okay. So basically the syntax for that is double. So you use the word double, and I know Block doesn't go very deep into this type of testing, but as a junior developer, I would expect coming into a Rails position, I would expect them to know a little bit about mocking and stubbing. And I would say an example, sorry, go ahead.
It's not respect. The testing is not spec and respect. RSpec, I'm sorry, RSpec.
RSpec, yep.
RSpec. We use RSpec to real spec to testing the result, right? The spec terminal spec and RSpec to testing that code.
Exactly, but it's way more complicated than that. It gets way more complicated. Mocking and stubbing, you would use, like, let's say I have an API or an external service that I don't want to hit every time, right? Like every time I hit an external API, I get charged. So in my tests, I don't want to hit that API every time. So what I would do is use a stub or a mock to stub that out so that I'm not actually making a call to it. Does that make sense?
Oh, we don't really make that call, so we're not going to be charged. We just use that, did you say mock stub?
Stub, S-T-U-B. Yep. And then I'll have this in the email that I write to you, the work.
Okay.
So that you can start researching it. But yeah, that's pretty like fundamental RSpec testing, and I would expect a junior coming in to know that stuff for sure.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So I would review that. Let's see. Can you talk about a gem that you have used in Rails and why you used it and kind of the pros and cons of using that gem in your application?
Gem application.
Yeah. Like, what's a gem that you've used in Rails? Why did you use it? Did you like using it? Yeah, pros and cons.
Gem is a lot of, I think there are lots of methods in Ruby. Am I correct?
Yep, it's like a library of code that you import into your application, right?
Right, lots of methods, and it's a library. You're right. It's basically make the code simple and less bugs, because those methods and function has been tested over and over, was built with very clean code already. So I just simply use it to make my story very clean, very straightforward. If I don't get my result, I know my code had some problems.
Right. Okay, and then so those are the pros of using a gem. What are some cons of using a gem? Like, what are some like negative consequences that can happen?
Some of the gem, I don't really know exactly how it built whatsoever. Some of it out, I got it maybe is very unexpected. It's probably it maybe it's because of the gym itself has inside that particular method inside has a certain way that
Yeah.
I didn't understand. I didn't see it totally.
Yeah. So can you name a specific gem that you used in your last Rails project and why you added that to your project?
For example, there are lots of methods. There's a map.
I'm not looking for specific methods that the gems have, but what's the name of a gem and what did that gem do? So like, why did you add that to your project?
What's the name of the gem? I couldn't remember one particular gem. Well, I think when I add that certain gem into my into that library, it's mainly it's because it's has a
Right, yeah, I get that, but if you don't know a specific gem, that's fine.
Okay.
Do you not know not a single gem?
I use gem, but now I don't even recall one.
That's okay. Totally fine. Yeah, I would review some of the more popular gems and kind of go back through your Rails projects, right? And maybe I would go ahead and do another Rails project, just so you're not so rusty on the back end since you've been focusing on the front end so much. If you have time, I would do like a side project in Rails and that sort of thing, just to kind of get back up to speed and you have it more fresh in your mind, especially now that you're going for full stack positions.
Should I just focus on just review these Q&A questions and Google them and search them first?
I don't think that'll be enough, to be honest. I think you're not going to know what questions they're going to ask you. They could ask you completely different questions about Rails or the backend. And then you'd be like, oh, I don't know any of them because I haven't Googled them. And I think you need more of an understanding of the whole picture. So going back and actually doing a project will help you with that, right? And you'll learn other things other than just the questions that I'm asking you, right now.
Okay. All right.
Because yeah, you'll never know. I wish we could predict exactly what questions companies would ask, but we can't. And they could, they'll probably ask you very different questions about Rails or maybe similar ones, but not exactly. So that's, I don't think that's the best way to prepare. I think it's definitely good to go through these questions and make sure you know the answers and research them. But I also think it would be good to do a small Rails project on the side. Okay. To kind of brush up and not be so rusty in the back end.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, does that make sense?
It does. It does. I was thinking, oh, if they're Q&A, just like lots of Q&A, what's the point? I was thinking. But
yeah.
Yeah.
And then what if one of the interview steps is you have to go in and whiteboard Rails, or you have to complete a take-home Rails project, and then you're totally rusty. It'll probably take you a long time. So yeah, I guess are you doing front end projects now currently? Are you still writing code, or are you just kind of more preparing for the interview?
I was preparing interview, but most of the time I spend it just like searching jobs. It takes me lots of time to find the right one for me because most of them they ask like a senior. So I'm just have to figure out something less than 2-year experience the job, and also front end use those main things, like Java, script, HTML, and CSS, Angular, those type of, and then they kind of like ask more. They said, "Oh, you have this, but you need to know, you need to do more React, you need to do." So, I was feel like I screened a lot of, um, you know, it's like I went through lots of things and then find one. It
Yep.
was,
Yeah. So that's great. And I know that takes a lot of time, but you also need to keep writing code because otherwise you're going to get really rusty and then you're going to go through all this work and find the right job. And then you're going to go to the interview and you're going to be like, oh crap, I haven't written code, in 6 months. And it goes, you know how fast
hard.
you lose it. So yeah. So I would keep writing code. Don't stop doing that. Do a full stack project. Keep doing that while you're looking for jobs. I think that'll just because you want to make sure that you can do the technical interviews when you get there and aren't too rusty.
Do you have
Thank
other Do you have other questions for me?
Nope, we're actually past our time. So what I'm gonna do is I'll send you.
I just have one question, 1 minute for you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Do you go to network, or you think it's better just do it, find a job online?
Way better to network. Cold emailing, applying to jobs online is not going to be as productive as meeting someone.
Oh, okay. Network.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, network. Okay. Okay. Got you. Okay, that's good. Oh, right. I do need to find time to go to network.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But I would just kind of mix it up. Don't spend all your time online applying for jobs. Do a little bit of that, do a little bit of networking, and do a little bit of writing code.
And I'm just afraid I will not be good in anything if I'm doing this little bit and that little bit and that little bit, that little bit. I will not have anything very deep in anything.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's super stressful. And I would talk to Kara, who's a career advisor. I'm not a career advisor. This is just my opinion. I'm a full-time engineer. I'm a hiring manager. So this is just my perspective.
Okay.
And but yeah, I would talk to career services, but I'll send you this video right now and send you the questions. And yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, have a great rest of your night. Yeah, it's a lot, but it's hard, but the reward will be worth it.
Thank you, Kenzie. I go to network tonight.
All right, have a good night.
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.